Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask for your attention for our next guest in open space? It's Olivier Garbay, French artist represented by Blanket Gallery from Vancouver, Canada, here in open space. Maybe you know Olivier Garbay's work from his collaborations with Sarah Lucas, and he will do a lecture today for us. Have fun.
Hello. Yolk, Larry, open heart, open mind, open space, open a window and jump of joy. Idea, visionaries, yet determined not to let go loose of the idea. So vigorous an idea indeed, that it started by invading their head entirely. Suddenly, made a prisoner by that idea of such devouring force that it now proposes to overcome the rest of all the other heads, and more particularly yours. Elected target, dissembled 1 mil. Conquered horror, put back in its place. The unknown calls for fear, who brings with her all attractive dangers. Fear entices dementia to erupt, encouraging madness, who never comes along. It's with a suit of shimmering velvets and the glistening of the gems that she arises, covering her tracks in the soothing murmur of clinging glasses and early morning songs, only caressed by helpless troubadour, sat just there, in between higher courts and meaningless towers. Ignoring that delicious power suddenly revealed under the shape of a premonition, which is now seducing willingly a bunch of pacifist followers. Knowing better than rambling, preferring to dare than to go spare, altogether attuned to the intriguing game of love and fame. Looking towards maybe, hoping for more liberty, as if, from agreeing lies to new hope, taking back to front and back again, constantly reconciling her bias to starve indefinitively the reticent. Ouch! She comes hard and strong, straight at you, who won't be able to avoid coming back all wobbly-knobbly, for she had forced the idea naturally onto you long before you could have reached ignore. Ultimately accepting what you already knew, the adventure is unstoppable. Amorous. They were running after the horizon, wanting to merge it with the finish line. Needless to say, they were demonstrating an unsettling innocence, which in spite of its lightness and against all odds, could nonetheless transform an exquisite mood into a better one. Precisely the one, coming always with some fair fun, a clear blue sky, and lashes of gay days. Whether they instantly fell in love with a cloud, a mirage, a prank, or a ghost, where is it in them, this place of need? The value of love is to love limitless. Wanting to know all about love, they realized too late they also had called for all abominations to appear. Naked. The odd couple was constantly taken by despair, having to show off its weaknesses, which even if mostly repulsive, could at times reopen an unforeseen landscape. Thus, immediately revealed by a simple move of their wrist, the magical path seems to be floating like a hypnotic perfume. It shifts course, invisible, imprinting nonetheless the level of consciousness deeply. One of them turned slowly towards the wall. Under the moist and somber cover of the night, the other sat propping up his bones against the pillow. The unwashed smell of their bodies was mixing from their armpits to the end of their toes. But accustomed to the worst, he could not avoid finding here yet another smile, as he had just started thinking, my body is an animal, my soul is a memory. Eventually forgetful about himself, for ultimately transported, having perfectly remembered the aroma of a madeleine briefly dipped down into one's cup of tea. Dancing. In dreams, they had found the perfect escape route, showing a way to translucence. Creamy like a cloud, it was a well-mannered absolute, joining in with the waking of a trance. Pointing towards, yes please, reorganizing a paradise sitting in a morning tub. They are floating like two little corks on the ocean, washed playfully by the coastal gaze of children. In reality, they had joined in the love for les pâtés en croûte, thus allowing concupiscence. Heavy like a sprout, it was a long-winded burned out, mixing sound and taking up a dance. Eventually, exploding naturally like a flower in ecstasy, freeing back in the wind the long accumulated dust that strangely seems to prefer these men, for never memory had spread better than on them. To clarify their sleepy head, breathing in more energy, under a cascade of evanescence, expensive experience expands at once like an allegory revealed in the making of a dance. Already, the toddler was pushing his ride with screams and shouts, all covered up in his tin can armor, forcing the horse towards the highest waves, and wrapped in utter dignity. He was gone of his tracks to save upon his life a couple, dangerously drifting on the invisible ocean made of two little corks. Heart to heart. It is an admirable company which demonstrates brilliantly how complicity goes on standing convincingly, fondly combining abstraction and tragedy. Now the pair is gently throwing itself head into a cul-de-sac as if nothing could ever stop it. Oncoming, here fighting a wall, there kicking a wine barrel, and then again attacking invisible giants on the side of the wheel, creating burlesque in the making, a grotesque yet sublime farce to which the only remedy is to join in the dance with uncontrollable laughter, to which everybody agreed and did. Some wind, indeed. In the beginning, they hold hands. Mid-course, they still hold hands. At the end of the story, they are still holding sweaty hands. Now, as they are finally standing only 1 foot away from the end, can they appreciate how tenderly ridiculous their magical interpretation of things was. None the more enticing and charming was encouragement given upon a fair belief. How uselessness would always be monitoring their rest, trying to fit in with a guilt trip. How the more essential their own sacrifice to the legend was. Now they had had it all. Now they could clearly see that they had been at. Tenderness had been a dream, unsold and then lost, adored and abandoned, victorious there, where the consumerist object does not reach. Only this time, even the yogurt's expiry date survived them. C'est quoi 155? the beauty of Samson's hair. I get my glasses on, sorry. Beauty is pertinence, in an instant of perfect disruption according to perception. It is the result of the combination of when, where, and what, precisely joining matter and spirit in an expression which is throwing the obvious above confrontation, exceeding challenges. Lifting your soul high enough to penetrate your feelings, now ultimately transformed, and allowing you to come back to it at will. It is a moving formula, which, like fur, caresses coldness, dissipating the enemy's efforts, scattering the deadly paralyzing breath into a delight of justness and a glance, given towards a concentrated effort to reveal a light, the supremacy of originality over the usual, and active determination over renouncement. As in a definitive brief movement slowly captured into eternity, immortalized into stone for all time to come in an object today dancing in the V&A. They are all the perceptions of beauty in a song. It now commands the dance. 1, 2, 3. Il protège son village. He's a man crowned with flowers. In his right hand, he's got a dead donkey jaw bones. They ought to die soon, the two Philistines, although they never will. It's a welcome into the solid and dry world, crawling together, clinging under his powerful legs, bared exposed in all the youth of their teens. Bottoms and buttocks well exposed, disposed as in giving. Remaining on their fours, as if they were the beast taken for. Their twisted pose shapes brilliantly the powerful yet conquered lines, now immobilized into the interval before immortality, which is here death itself. Brothers, twins in mud dying to protect their village. The hero stands well above them to firmly strike them down, the demons of flesh lookalikes, down and down again. In the most precise and determinate will, he rises continuously above doubts and turns around dwelling all will, to kiss again the sensual majesty of a marble threesome, around which you start to turn unwillingly, taken entirely sliding along the object, sensing more warmth into your own body, captivated by such strength, captured into a passionate, static movement. In an impossible second that will never fade, Samson will have taken their lives. From a standpoint well exposed in the city, against a pale blue sky, appear again the elements of death in full youth, naked and free, keeping up with the best. For a desire of eternity, for that second that will never fade, to always celebrate the birth of a second yet born a long time ago, in the legend he says, ne jamais devoir se rendre. A scene is given, acted and replayed, exposed to the macho world of wars, erected in the center of the museum, crystallized into a marble symbol of power, freely abandoned to consciousness and pride, then sold and forgotten, mesmerized and given away to those three men who became gods themselves, and away again to these in centuries to come, to slowly make them start turning around, joining in the trance, the mythologic world of the magical stone circles and hunting games. Today, 64 centimeters of gold in a chain from VCA. The walls and towers of the culture world that we were in the building are dissolving, and whereas heroes then could see forth on their own, will from the known to the unknown, we, today, willy-nilly, must enter the forest at its thickest, and, like it or not, the pathless way is the only way now before us. that the great man should be able to appear and dwell among us again, again and again, Nietzsche wrote. That is the sense of all your efforts here on earth, that there should ever and again be men among you to elevate you to your heights. That is the price for which you strive. That is only through the coming to light of such human beings that your own existence can be justified. Meanwhile, in York City, he's a super rich painter. He says he's telepathic, but as far as I'm concerned, he's just a little paranoid. Did you have to massacre the poor guy like that? I mean, I guess, all told, I really loved Luigi, but now he'll never come back to me. Why don't you stay a little longer? You always made me happy, even if you're an incredible jerk. Phew, it's a good thing you ran out of ammunition. Ooh. Did you hear his death rattle when his eyes slid open his throat? Yes, thank God you were there, doctor. Façon Liechtenstein, the Xerox way. Eat dog. I eat the dog to protect home. You come alive to restore my dead. To find you there, I climb the stairs. It's nothing else but burning hell. I feed the birds to kill the planes. I give no shite to the boyfriends. I've got the one for my concern. TV imploded on the Western. We instead of I. An open we instead of you. We for it's free. I had a wee piece at free. That is the only we I ever had, and pissed off. A double-decker bus bunch of cunts in front of helpless Princess Stress. She thinks he'll never come, the one she wakes up for in the fourth tom. I pushed the cat over the edge. The river flows on holy drugs, wiping the shite of the system to go fly a kite, a needlework instead. We instead of I or you. We for it's free. I had a blessing thy. That is the only we I ever had, and peace is off. Blast the poor and blast the rich. Trash your pathetic wheel in just one go. Get the planet ruined anyway, bitch. There's no more secret for the day, no. Vomiting the dog I had for breakfast. It's not nice, so much in pain. Hunger in vain. Can't find the door to get out fast. Definitively wrong, I must have been. Left all in the realm of we instead of I, we instead of you, we for it's free. I had a free will at once, or was it 1:45? Where is Fellini gone? Thank you. Cats. I play with the insides of the cat for 6 strings to sound off a light wooden case, yes, bouncing back into your face. It makes a particular sound that my voice likes to lick along with your waves of faith. It makes you cry. It makes me feel your needs and inside cuts. It makes up heights for us to collide with. It is a popular need to share along with distress, within the brief moment of a radio wave, to remain secured of better days, to hold you tight when you die. I play with the inside of a cat. Oh, solitude. I made friends with solitude. We talk about everything. How hair length influences the perception of a face. What we gonna do when we win the lottery. Where it is so nice to enjoy a view lying soft all over you. Who destiny is when first mean. Why is it that I remember you? I do. We talk, we catch up again. How easily held you are now. again as lovers in chains forever. With trust, all right, for we've known one another for longer than it takes to associate. Or was it a vow again? Do you? She then softly took off her coat of fame and rearranged her hair. Thus, delicately she starts to take out of you the harmful, langless swirls of pain as easily as can be, lighting above your head a whole ceiling of promises, which indefinitively dwells towards maybe. For Solitude, who first brought the swords for you to endure missing, comes always in her right hand with some legendary hope, to remind you at a glance how to survive yet again your own disenchantment, allowing creation to arise through her own mysterious ways, to erase maybe this time the cold from her for good, leaving her as virgin as can be to enjoy her own company. For now, not lonely anymore, I am alone with a smile of my own in my hand, which commands an untakeable cloud to spread a light friendship at first sight. Solitude, she's all right. Qubit 98. Il vit au fond des yeux de l'autre un mur opposé, encollé, blanchi et aligné là d'entre las élancés des deux lignes vêtues de vertus persanes et courbées en un dessin de tapisserie au contraste élégant, affiché de charme florentin, ainsi exposé ici perché dans la jeune galerie d'art branché de liaisons bientôt ramifiées. In Neptune's arms, like eyes, keep the hunger of the mortified. Create beauty for the rest at best. Flowers, swords, and needles as dripping wings, on which hangs always a drop or three of blood's alchemy. In the middle of the square, monuments of pure glory, elliptical promises of the dance, which always in style spreads the holy thoughts as minds, and feeds ourselves with endless references in the making, emerging from stones nourished with eternal movements, as in centuries of tears, melt into pure golden lights, on which young men ride brown horses' rumps and slide over and over, throwing themselves into the middle of the microdot. Building endless friendships that comes from nowhere in the middle of the square, spread infected culture to whatever we fast fit likewise, doing it again and again, only if it's for la muse amusée, la signoria, that fat lady. It knew the challenge to be at best impossible. Thus, he knew he had to choose the right words. Left, right, left, wrong. It knew that to know was claustrophobic. Sorry. It knew that to know was I can't do it. Claustrophobic. It rather had not known. Only it was too late, because it knew. Miraculously, it also knew how to let go, reassured when saying, the more I know, the less I know. In a boat, rowing, cliché number 1, number 2, cliché number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, adding rhythm to its dimensions and increased speed to its motion. It had many tricks. It knew the challenge to be at best impossible. Thus, it knew he had to choose the right words. Left, right, left, wrong. It knew that to know was claustrophobic. It rather had not known. Only it was too late because it knew. Miraculously, it also knew how to let go. Reassured when saying, the more I know, the less I know. In a boat, rowing, cliché number 1, number 2, Cliché number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, adding rhythm to its dimensions and increased speed to its motion. He had many tricks of its sleeveless extended arms. It would pick up the glove and write a farce to challenge science. At first, it looked like a kitchen deserted in a panic. Lunchtime has gone to pass, and the recipe book was still lying wide open. Leftover pastry was tenaciously sticking to marble. Oil was smoking in the pan, broken eggshells and flour were suspended in midair. All were standing still while spreading their symbolic mythology all over us. A now conscious picture of the mind at work is interrupting the expected rhythm to urgently go rescue some ill geometry. It thought that in time it could be funny. It was beyond being objectively sincere. It was it. It lent and adapted itself. It corresponded and enticed. It willingly rode the highs and lows, lighting up marketplaces and laws. Totally industrialized, he had to imagine better, bending. It could take you over, unconscious included, in just one brief adjusted moment of advertising, beacon included. Definitive, it got you in depth. It would go visit all trades and landmarks to see how it matters there. It had to sustain vision. It knew death well. It knew the feeling of emptying itself well as well, and inflating in the most soon to be out of proportion. When asked what it wanted to be, it had said free. It could have been riding open spaces, though was qualified and quantified and parked in a garage. You see, it depended on its body. Dashing, it had plenty of polished wood on board. It would go mad if it didn't fall crazy in love. It intimately desired access to the greatest knowledge of our times. You can't blame it for getting mental, emotional, and spiritual, or do you? Its relationship with the past wasn't nostalgic only, but also packed with references in order to adapt its lines to the level of aerodynamic required. It endorsed all dynamic contradictions. It stood still an entire day, witnessing the slow gliding of the shadows. It pictured paradox. It sized futility and silence. It was curious about its own limits. Oh, it respected the hand of the maker, but still was godless. Ultra-modern, already post-humanist, and soon enhanced by nanotechnology and biochemistry via planet Mars, from inside a tube, inside a pipeline, in a car park. It first had been discreet and soft, ever so like a sponge. It got so inflated, it nearly killed itself. It felt exploited when it had nothing to do. It had its heroes deep-rooted in the 19th and early 20th century when they were developed enough to challenge structures and authority. It thought that it could beat its dad. It needed to experience colors. It learned how to impress your unconscious roughly enough to make you act consciously giving. It had an extraordinary chic for social virtues. It enjoyed toying with predictions, preconceptions, and imagination. Then, it was never bothered by its own economy and sang the relative mantra of less is more. It didn't know them, but they knew it. It was the object in between you and us. Its love for itself barely was a means. It is a breath a blow, an invisible and provocative power. It is the independent bird with a human face, a little flame, a ribbon, and a scarf. It is a fog, a rock, a fish. In the bone, the first one dies. In the blood, the second ones become a bee and is eaten by spirits. The third is a shady ghost that appears to the living. The more it said no, the more it did it. Automatic, autonomic, and recycling. It is the ideal robot with a big one. It could perform and didn't mind competition. It took balance in between destinations and directions, sizing that poetry would not depend on the structures of its societies, but only of its own nature. The flow of life itself flying beyond judgmental remarks and categorizing modes. It had to survive the worst, establish up their own rear of cliches. Only it liked cliches. They reminded it wasn't completely coming from nowhere. It was calling another physical body to the rescue. It was depending on its situation, the environment, you know. Protected by Jupiter, the shooting star's magnet, it was cooler than Venus and warmer than Mars, well positioned indeed. It learned that its life remained priceless against all odds. Impersonating unconscious object, being the child of light and its own sun. Animus, anima, reunited in the same subject, passing through the secret chamber. It lacked the sound of mes secrets, je vous les livre. All initiation, even the most natural, contains elements of secrecy and retreat. It instinctively knew 3 dimensions required 6 coordinates to situate in space, time sold separately. It laughed at the exploded theatrical conventions to bring a new set of fresh plans that start with yes, please. You are right indeed. It wasn't planning to break your vision. It will merely try to extend it. It could easily glide and adapt to the slightly change of mood. Hypersensitive and essential, hyper now. It danced a lot. It most desired to be rescued. It does enjoy each step of the way. It caught a glance at what it was like to play the glass bead game. It had plenty of time for the fragile. Oh, it wasn't a car or anything. It was his soul. It took pity on him under the cover of the night. It came down and trashed his guts open. But there it found nothing more than the wind. Nothing more, no child, no shit. Only the wind, a stinking yet dissipated nothingness. He had let go loose. He had finally given up. No trace of him remains. Only the wind of his own absence. A nothingness transparent like a liquid, like his father is. That is on a bad day. On a good day, he could say that that seemingly nothingness had another name. If only he could remember it, put his lips together and blow from the tip of his tongue. Oh yes, liberty. She had played in the heavenly fountain, 1,000 hairs undone. Intensely joyful, she had sung an eternal lullaby that breathtakingly captured kingly ears. Helped by her sisters, she had dressed wittingly in meeting with the lords. Then she had undressed to address us all. He recognizes the seriousness of the age. Thus, the necessity of encouragement given by a positive gesture of the face. Constant towards transcending beauty, taken with no warning, rescued from the heart of cruelty. Discovering enchantments and charms that are all contained in equations, yet unthinkable by written minds. it, she, he, I, she, it, he she, it, she, it, he. I'd better get going. C'est mon quartier que je préfère au monde entier. C'est mon quartier où j'ai tellement vadrouillé. Ces vieilles façades sont dans la panade. C'est pas des palais, oui, mais c'est là que je me plais. J'aime son café avec son zinc rouillé. C'est mon quartier que je préfère au monde entier. On n'y fleure pas la verveine, ça sent la nature dans tous les coins. Les huissiers chez nous n'ont pas de peine, les banquiers, il n'y en a pas besoin. On a bien aussi monsieur le maire, mais il n'a jamais beaucoup de tintouin. Quand on se marie, on préfère prendre la lune pour seul témoin. C'est mon quartier que je préfère au monde entier. C'est mon quartier, j'y mourrai comme j'y suis né. Dankeschön. Auf Wiedersehen.